economic, cultural, and social evolutions. This is Beijing 1008 Discover Plus Radio, a division of China Radio International. CRI News. China's foreign ministry says Chinese leaders are expected to attend state funeral for the late former Prime Minister of Singapore, Lee Kuan Yew. However, details on who will be present at the Sunday service have not been given. Singapore is in 7 days of mourning following the death of his founding father. Lee passed away on Monday at the age of 91. His body is to lie in state at Parliament from Wednesday to Saturday, after a private family wake on Monday and Tuesday. World leaders have been paying tribute to Lee, who served as the city-state's prime minister for 31 years. Chinese President Xi Jinping says Lee was a widely respected strategist and statesman. UN Chief Ban Ki-moon is describing Lee Kuan Yew as a legendary figure in Asia. US President Barack Obama has called him the giant of history. Chinese State Councilor Yang Jiechi has met with Indian National Security Advisor Ajit Doval in New Delhi at the latest round of talks over the boundary issue. The two say they've agreed to maintain peace along the border until border disputes between the two countries are solved. Yang Jiechi and Doval also say they plan to work together on both international and regional affairs. Chinese Premier Li Keqiang has reaffirmed the cooperative stance between the proposed Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank and existing financial institutions. He said the AIIB will take an open and inclusive attitude and be complementary to existing development banks. The Premier made remarks during a meeting with the President of the Asian Development Bank, Takehiko Nakao. He pledged further partnership with ADB and called on it to play a bigger role in poverty reduction and development. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has issued an apology to Arab Israelis for his controversial comments made in the final hours during last week's parliamentary election. In a video message, Netanyahu said Arab Israelis were being buzzed in droves by left-wing organizations in an attempt to topple his government. The statement, seen by many as a last-ditch attempt to court the far-right vote, has been condemned in Israel and abroad. Netanyahu has since released a statement saying he didn't mean to offend Israeli Arab voters. Around 20% of Israel's population is of Arab descent. Arab politicians in the country have rejected Netanyahu's apology. At least 36 people are dead and 70 others injured in a massive traffic accident in Peru. The bus with a group of church parishioners drifted into the opposite lane, slamming into 3 oncoming vehicles. The crash took place around 300 kilometers north of the Peruvian capital, Lima. Authorities believe the driver of the bus may have fallen asleep. Up to 250 child soldiers, including 4 girls, have been released from an armed group in South Sudan. The United Nations Children's Fund says another 400 should be released over the next 2 days. The armed group has advised UNICEF that they have up to 3,000 child soldiers. The release comes following a peace deal between the armed group and the government. UNICEF says a total of 12,000 children, mostly boys, were recruited and used as soldiers in South Sudan in 2014. The French authorities are reportedly planning a series of traffic control measures later today to try to cut down on air pollution. Cars with an odd number license plate have been banned from the roads. The French capital saw a massive increase in air pollution levels on Monday, leading to a lot of frustration among drivers in Paris. Similar measures were implemented just over a year ago in the French capital after the smog reached dangerous levels. The wildlife authorities in Zimbabwe say the country has an excess of over 30,000 elephants that are available for both export and internal relocation. They say the overpopulation has resulted in habitat degradation and affected biodiversity. The statement was in response to recent reports of a baby elephant export to the United Arab Emirates. The government says the export will follow international rules and is aimed at raising money for sustainable management of wildlife. But animal rights groups have slammed the move as cruel for fears of abuse and mistreatment. Testing of the new version of China's Long March rocket series has taken place. The Long March 5 has undergone these initial lightning procedures. The new rocket has been designed to carry parts to eventually build the Chinese space station. It will also be used in China's moon launches. And that's the news from CRI. I'm Sijin in Beijing.
This is People in the Know, a weekday forum for in-depth coverage of the news shaping China, the world, and your life. Now here's your host, Zheng Wang.
Describing the Singapore of his youth in the 1920s and the 1930s, former Singaporean leader Lee Kuan Yew wrote, "The population was less than 1 million, and most of Singapore was covered by mangrove swamps, rubber plantations, and a secondary forest, because of where the rubber had failed." When he passed away, what Lee Kuan Yew left Singapore is a thriving city-state, renowned for its cleanliness and prosperity, with an economy that is the envy of much of the Asia-Pacific that surrounds it. It has 5.5 million citizens, and is one of the world's most important hubs for shipping and finance. Lee Kuan Yew served as the Prime Minister of Singapore from 1959 to 1990, remaining highly influential in Singaporean politics, even up to his death. It was under his stewardship that Singapore underwent its massive modernization and transformation, and for that reason, Lee Kuan Yew is sometimes called the Father of Singapore. 你好, you are listening to People in the Know, presenting you with insights into the headline news in China and around the world. I'm Zheng Wang in Beijing. So looking back, how do experts see the legacy of Lee Kuan Yew? What lessons can we learn from the life of such an influential leader? To find out more, Nathan Wilkin King spoke to Wang Jiangyu, Associate of the Center for International Law and Associate Professor of Law at the National University of Singapore.
Professor Wang, thanks a lot for taking the time to talk to us today. So Lee Kuan Yew is sometimes called the father of Singapore or the architect of Singapore. In your opinion, how did Lee Kuan Yew's governance, especially in the earlier years, put Singapore on the path to what it is today?
Thanks for having me, Nathan. Lee Kuan Yew is called the founding father of Singapore. That is certainly not an exaggeration because Singapore was nothing before he took over Singapore, and he led Singapore from a third world country into the first world. I think in terms of if you ask me about the political legacy of Singapore, I think there are three things we have to bear in mind. So the first legacy is he left Singapore with what election-based political system. That's the British style